A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilman. So, assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to our series in Ramadan, which is reflecting on one verse of the Quran every day. Today, inshallah, we will be talking about verse 35 from Sura Isra, which is chapter 17 of the Quran. So it is 1735. And it says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and give full measure when you measure out, and weigh with a true balance. This is fair and better in the end. And the word that Allah uses for giving full measure or measuring out is very interesting. It is qistasil mustaqim. In other words, two words, qist and qistas, which means justice, and the pan of balance. In other words, be fair and give full measure. So, this is a very important theme in the Quran, that when we are dealing with other human beings, it needs to be based on on a basis of fairness, of just dealing, of giving and receiving what one is, especially giving what one is obligated to. So in the most basic sense, it means that balances and measuring devices, commercial calculation instruments, must be accurate and intact. In other words, they cannot be based on a thing which gives you less than what you bargained for. So, of course, it also means, in a much more general way, to barter goods, to have dealings with people based on fairness, honesty, and so that what is equal is what is received. What is given is equal to what is received. Why? Why is this so important? Because we know that trust is the basis of an evolved society. When human beings trust each other, when you know what you are getting is what you paid for, things are speeded up. We call it the speed of trust, right? And when you're dealing with somebody that you trust, there is a lot of energy that is saved, energy in second guessing, energy in looking over your shoulder, because you know that they are somebody who is a person of their word. And we see this in evolved societies where people have come to a situation where the whole society deals on a basis of trust, right? In the old days, you hear stories about how this was the norm. People used to, for example, may leave their shops open when they went for salah, or when they were busy, and people would come, buy things and put the money in a jar or in a box, and this was just common, right? Unfortunately, in today's day and age, it's not that common. And in some societies, for example, in Europe, the whole transit system runs on the basis of trust. You buy your own ticket, there's no one checking, and only rarely are very random checks made. And when they are made, it turns out that very few people have boarded the system or used the system without payment. So it functions, it saves resources of accounting, of monitoring, and obviously it helps everything run smoothly. Now, how do we, even if we're not in business, how can we live this verse, right? Let's look at some uncomfortable ways where we may be cheating the system, taking more than we paid for, or given less than that you were obligated to. Are most obvious, right? But less obvious perhaps might be ways that we spend our time at work, especially if we're being paid by the hour. How much time do we spend on personal phone calls, on social media, on things like that? And some of the barriers to living this ayat are simply that, greed. We all want to get something for nothing. We have a feeling of win that we kind of because we have this feeling that corporations and others are kind of taking advantage of us. And this is an indication, right? When people feel that they are not being treated fairly or respectfully, then they want to take advantage of the system, right? So you can see how it is, and all of us, we may not be able to do anything but the corporations, but we can live our lives in a way that we measure with full integrity what we are obligated to. So, how can we live this verse? By becoming more mindful of where we may be shortchanging people or organizations, and then, of course, taking the steps to remedy this as soon as possible. And remedying this as soon as possible. So, for example, if you get extra change at the store, and sometimes we may tell ourselves it doesn't matter, the company is so rich, and they're not going to miss it. And that is really not the point, right? The point is, what is our obligation in that moment? And if we don't act on that immediately, the pricks of conscience are short-lived, right? And they kind of fall silent if they're not acted upon quite quickly. So the next time, we get something for nothing by mistake or whatever, let's take action and we return the thing as soon as possible. So that was the reflection for today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.